$10,000 lawsuit. What did the kid get? I don't really care. Probably an A. I think that one was kind of weak.
Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers Poster 7, Officer Jurisdiction, and Trespassing, and comes to us from Amagansett Press's channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. Before we dive into the interaction, I want to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this episode, Blinkist, sponsoring this episode. Sometime around February 24th, 2020, photojournalist and activist Jason Gutterman, along with his teenage son Benjamin Gutterman, were traveling through the town of Silverthorne, Colorado, when they decided to conduct a First Amendment audit on the local post office. Mr. Gutterman entered the post office and stood in line to purchase stamps from the register, before being told by the post office employee that he was not allowed to film in the building. Mr. Gutterman challenged the employee's statements, and after the employees and patrons of the post office became disgruntled by Mr. Gutterman's presence, officers from the Silverthorne Police Department arrived on the scene.
Why are you being an asshole? At the jump, this guy is already just being an asshole. Like, he comes in filming the post office. People don't want to be filmed. Like, just don't film. The fuck?
This episode is somewhat longer than the typical episode of ATA. I highly recommend that you watch the entirety of this episode to gain a deeper understanding of the...
I know you're allowed to be an asshole, but why? Why?
Legal complexities at play.
So how are you? Can I get your name and badge number, sir?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the point of the... What are they auditing inside of the fucking post office?
Jake Arneson, and badge number 28.
28. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So have you ever... Their issue is with us filming in here. Are you familiar with the postal rules and regulations?
So I spoke with them. They're telling me the post office employees are saying...
Creating a situation... Right, so they're being assholes to just create a situation for content. Why are you fucking in here filming people just trying to get their fucking mail?
Filming?
Right, so let's...
Like, don't be an asshole. I treat this the exact same way as that dude going into those fucking stores at that strip mall, like, taking money out of the tip jar and then giving them $20. Dude, you just want to make content and you're being an asshole. Like, these people just want to fucking work their job. Chill.
There's something called... I'll show you over here. Hello.
But is it against the law, though? I don't fucking care if it's against the law. You know what else isn't against the law? Fucking saying you're a dumb fuck and banning you for 10 minutes. That ain't gonna stop me.
How are you? Good. So they have something called Poster 7, okay, which is the rules and regulations of the post office governing conduct on postal property, okay? There is a section for photographs for news, advertising, or commercial purposes, which allows us to take photographs inside of the post office as long as we are not in a restricted area. Okay. As long as we're in a publicly accessible area.
Can we actually go outside so we're not restricting them getting in?
Yeah, let's go right over here. Just plenty of room. Yeah. So that's all we're doing. We're traveling through Silverthorne.
Yeah.
I'm in line to buy a stamp. That's all I was doing. And we're just documenting our trip.
Okay. Well, they've asked you to turn the cameras off.
But that's not the law. That's just their feelings and their requests, so I'm going to respectfully deny that request and go by federal law.
Mr. Gutterman asks the post office employee whether he has ever read Poster 7, which contains rules for conduct on postal property as provided in Section 232.1 of Title 39 of the Code of Federal Regulations. The rules and regulations contained in Poster 7 apply to all real property under the charge and control of the U.S. Postal Service, to all tenant agencies, and to all persons entering in or on such property, and they must be kept posted at a conspicuous place on all such property. According to the Postal Service's website, the general policy for photography and filming on Postal Service premises is found in subsection I of Poster 7 and section 124.58 of the Postal Operations Manual, both of which state that, quote, photographs for news purposes may be taken in entrances, lobbies, foyers, corridors, or auditoriums when used for public meetings, except where prohibited by official signs or security force personnel or other authorized personnel or a federal court order or rule. Other photographs may be taken only with the permission of the local local postmaster or installation head. The Postal Service's website further clarifies the policies for filming in a post office, stating that, quote, all requests from qualified news reporting services to film or photograph on Postal Service premises must be referred to the local public affairs and communications representative. Informal snapshots from handheld cameras for personal use may be allowed at the postmaster's discretion, provided that there is no disruption to Postal Service operations and that the pictures are taken from
Actually, so it looks like it's an L. Looks like chat's taking a fucking L. Don't be an asshole, chat. Don't talk shit. You won't get hit, bruh.
areas accessible to the public. In these cases, no prior permission is required from the Office of Rights and
Stop, just don't be an asshole, bro. Just don't be an asshole, man. Holy shit. To be fair to chat, I totally thought y'all were right. I thought for sure you could just film wherever the fuck you want in the postal office. I thought, on God, I thought that was going to be the easiest shit in the world, but nope. Nope.
However, no lighting or scaffolding may be set up, and no picture can depict any Postal Service employee, customer, security camera, or cover of mail, i.e. the exterior of a mail piece, which would show customer name and address.
This shit is what I thought, right? If you're filming people getting their mail, like customers getting their mail, and like shit like that, it's like, that's kind of weird.
Address, among other things. Postmasters may restrict any and all photography if they determine that it is disruptive or there are potential security concerns. While the Silverthorne Postmasters policies are not publicly available, Poster 7 grants considerable discretion to post office authorities to regulate photography and filming inside the post office. Courts have not considered whether a policy prohibiting filming in a post office would violate the First Amendment, but in the 1990 case of United States versus Kokinda, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a Poster 7 provision prohibiting soliciting alms and
Wait, Kendrick says, I work for the post office. I didn't know this either. Oh my God, you're such a fucking piece of shit. Imagine not knowing the law. Imagine not being a fucking lawyer because you work at a fucking post office, dude. That's so fucking dumb, dude. What the fuck is wrong with you? Thanks for the sub, Adam.
Campaigning for election to any public office.
Kendrick, I don't know why you said that out loud, dude. I'm gonna message your fucking boss. Tell them you didn't read up the fucking laws before you decided to get employed there. What a fucking loser.
Collecting private debts, commercial soliciting and vending,
Yeah,
and displaying or
7.
distributing
Imagine
commercial
not reading that
advertising
shit.
on postal premises, particularly on a walkway from the parking lot to the entrance. In reaching the conclusion that this rule did not violate the First Amendment, the court determined that, while postal entryways may be open to the public, quote, that fact alone does not establish that such areas must be treated as traditional public fora under the First Amendment. The Postal Service has not expressly dedicated its sidewalks to any expressive activity. Indeed, postal property is expressly dedicated to only one means of communication, the posting of public notices on designated bulletin boards. No Postal Service regulation opens postal sidewalks to any First Amendment activity. Thus, the regulation at issue must be analyzed under the standards set forth for non-public fora. It must be reasonable and not an effort to suppress expression merely because public officials oppose the speaker's view. The reasonableness standard is a fairly low bar, and post office officials could likely establish the reasonable...
Kendrick, you know that we're joking, right? You haven't responded, and this is weird. It's getting weird now, Kendrick. Say something so you know we're all joking.
Of a blanket prohibition against filming based on
you know we're
security, privacy, or operational concerns.
The rules are posted on the wall, sir.
joking.
And I just want to make you aware, I'm going to advise the three of you right now that if you make me leave this post office, you're violating my constitutional rights and you're also violating the law.
Okay.
And I will very adamantly pursue that, and I have a very huge network of defense attorneys and people behind me. So I just want to make you aware of that before that happens.
Dude, I can't believe any of you dumb fucks were rooting for this asshole. I know you guys are joking. I'm subscribing. No shot.
That's your right. That's fine.
Okay.
Do you have your IDs on you?
What would you need ID for?
I need to identify who I'm talking to.
No shot.
Do you suspect me of committing a crime or having committed a crime?
You're trespassing, sir.
I'm not trespassing.
You are.
Have you asked me to leave? If you asked me to leave and
Wait, what was that? What was that editing? Why did that double over on itself? I don't think they had formally asked him to leave the premises, did they?
refuse to leave, then I'm trespassing.
Okay, I'm asking you to leave.
You're asking me to leave in full knowledge that you're violating my constitutional rights.
They've asked you to leave.
Have you read the law on the wall? Would you like to at least, can we look at that first?
I understand what's written on the wall.
You didn't even read
But
it. How do you understand
asked
it?
you to leave, okay?
You haven't looked at what's on the wall. Does anybody want to take a look at the rules? You have the federal law right there. Not only do I have a legal right to be here, I have a constitutionally protected. This is a constitutionally protected activity, and you're about to violate that. You might want to call a lieutenant. Seriously.
Okay.
I don't want to have to sue Silverthorne. I want to avoid that. And you will be...
Oh, he doesn't know, Chad. He doesn't know. He doesn't know.
on the hook for a massive...
The post office has asked us to ask you to leave.
You're not federal police. Why don't you call the federal police? You have no jurisdiction in this building.
Mr. Gutterman asserts that only federal police officers have jurisdiction inside a post office, and that the Silverthorne police officers do not, which may not be an accurate statement. According to the Department of Justice Criminal Resource Manual, government property can be categorized in 3 ways for the purposes of federal criminal...
Is this like an eggshell piece? I don't think this is white. This is like eggshell.
Jurisdiction.
Why?
The manual states that, quote, first, certain lands fall within the exclusive jurisdiction of the United States. As this term implies, on these lands, federal criminal law applies, to the exclusion of state law. Other properties acquired by the United States fall within the concurrent criminal jurisdiction of the state and federal governments. Finally, the United States may acquire property without accepting any special criminal jurisdiction over it. In this situation, the United States simply retains proprietary jurisdiction over the property. If a federal building is under the exclusive or concurrent jurisdiction of the United States, it is considered a quote-unquote federal enclave. And under Section 7 of Title 18 of the United States Code, the federal government has, quote, special maritime and territorial jurisdiction over, quote, any lands reserved or acquired for the use of the United States, and under the exclusive or concurrent jurisdiction thereof, or any place purchased or otherwise acquired by the United States by consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be, for the erection of a fort, magazine, arsenal, dockyard, or other needful building. While post offices are considered a needful building, not every post office is a federal enclave, and the analysis to determine the status of an individual building is complex and time-consuming, often requiring unconventional research methods. However, even if the Silverthorne Post Office is a federal enclave, the Silverthorne police officers could still have the authority to protect the post office. According to Section 3061C1 of Title 18 of the United States Code, quote, the Postal Service may employ police officers for duty in connection with the protection of property owned or occupied by the Postal Service, or under the charge and control of the Postal Service, and persons on that property, including duty in areas outside the property to the extent necessary to protect the property and persons on the property. In fact, Poster 7 itself states that, quote, local postmasters and installation heads may enter into agreements with state and local enforcement agencies to ensure that these rules and regulations are enforced in a manner that will protect Postal Service property. Without knowing the arrangements made for security in the Silverthorne Post Office, it's impossible to say whether the officers had the authority to enforce the postal workers' request that Mr. Gutterman leave the premises. But they would be within the bounds of their authority to do so if the federal government had proprietary jurisdiction over the post office property, or if the post office was a federal enclave that made an agreement with local police.
I mean, they're clearly enclave, right? I mean, that's the best faction in Fallout, so they clearly chose it, right? Like, clearly.
Ask me about DWI laws and speeding laws and that kind of thing. I have no idea what I'm talking about. You ask me about this stuff, I know better than your district attorney does.
Here's my business card. You can sue me, okay?
I'm not going to sue you unless you formally trespass me.
Yo, the sergeant is fucking goated, dude. Didn't even skip the name and badge number. He's like, here, you know what, dude? Here's my fucking card, all right? Get the fuck out of here.
I'm respectfully declining unless I'm being formally trespassed. If you formally trespass me, I will leave immediately. Ma'am, am I free to...
They do not want you back in...
Am I free to leave?
The building, yes.
I'm asking, am I free to leave?
The building, yes.
So if I'm free to leave, I'm free to stay. So I'm going to go buy my stamp.
They do not want you in that office.
That's not their call.
Yeah, it is.
Well, then formally trespass me and I'll leave. You can't have it both ways. That's not the way it works. I'm sorry. I am not refusing to leave. I will walk out the door immediately and never come back if I am formally trespassed. If I am not formally trespassed, I'm going to go buy my stamp. So what do we do?
Go ahead.
God, man. I think that this audit shit is like the clearest display of like your brain on clout. You know, your brain on clout forming. Right? When you get the content skull, man, this is what happens. This is what it looks like, man. It's the clearest display of it, dude. This shit is crazy.
to serve you.
Okay. It's not a no-win.
I'll give you my.
The
I'll
way,
give
you know
my
what?
card.
You know what?
You're formally trespassed. Go.
I want it in writing.
We'll
Just
write it
go.
down.
You're going to give it to me in writing?
We'll write it down.
Okay.
Sure.
And you're not going to buy time for 15 minutes until they close the door and not formally trespass me. I'm giving you 3 minutes to start the paperwork, and I'm coming back in.
All right.
Mr. Gutterman refuses to leave the premises without
Jesus.
receiving a written formal trespass order, which is not legally required under any circumstances. If the post office is under proprietary federal jurisdiction, there are 2 Colorado criminal statutes that may apply to the situation. Section 18-9-110 of the Colorado Revised Statute states that, quote, "No person shall willfully refuse or fail to leave any public building owned, operated, or controlled by the state, or any of the political subdivisions of the state, or at any building owned, operated, or controlled by the federal government, upon being requested to do so by the chief administrative officer or his designee charged with maintaining order in such public building, if the person has committed, is committing, threatens to commit, or incites others to commit any act which did, or would if completed, disrupt, impair, interfere with, or obstruct the lawful missions, processes, procedures, or functions being carried on in the public building." Additionally, Section 18-4-504 of the Colorado Revised Statute states that, quote, "A person commits the crime of third-degree criminal trespass if such person unlawfully enters or remains in or upon premises of another." Section 18-4-504.5 defines premises as,
Wait.
quote, "real property, buildings, and
Hold
other..."
on. So wouldn't they still have to charge him with criminal trespass to get him out? Like, wouldn't
Not
that be the
licensed,
law?
invited, or otherwise privileged to do so. A person who, regardless of his or her intent, enters or remains in or upon premises that are at the time open to the public does so with license and privilege, unless the person defies a lawful order not to enter or remain, personally communicated to him or her by the owner of the premises or some other authorized person. Neither of these statutes requires that an individual receive any notice at all from the police, let alone a written formal notice to be convicted.
No, I see. The notice. Doesn't he have to be... He has to be, like... Not informed, but there has to be a charge, or maybe not a charge specifically. I don't know what the word would be. It would have to be levied that he is trespassing, though, right?
Of trespassing. If the post office is a federal enclave under concurrent or exclusive federal jurisdiction, federal law will likely control this issue under the Assimilative Crimes Act, which is found in Section 13 of Title 18 of the United States Code, and incorporates
Notified?
state
No.
law into the law of the federal enclave when a state crime is not punishable under the federal criminal statutes. While Poster 7 is likely the applicable criminal law if the post office is a federal enclave, just like the state law, the federal law does not include a formal written notice requirement. Therefore, under either state or federal law, Mr. Gutterman did not need to receive a formal written notice to commit trespass.
Give us your name and date of birth. That's how.
You don't need my name and date of birth for a trespass. No, you don't. You guys don't know the law.
Okay.
Okay, you really don't. I'm sorry.
I don't-
Well, you just
Man, the smugness.
told me I couldn't film in there, and I can.
I bet you this guy gets a C or a B minus, probably, unironically.
Your opinion.
Well, I'm gonna go back in.
No, you're not.
No, you're not, dude.
Well, then trespass me.
You are trespassed.
That's not a trespass.
After a lengthy exchange between Mr. Gutterman and the Silverthorne officers, everyone left the scene without further...
Like, I love it how this auditor dude probably shits on cops for using, like, aggression too often. And he's like, then trespass me. What do you want them to do? Hey, Kendrick, you actually did sub. I appreciate it, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks, Kendrick. Wow, I gotta bully viewers more. Like, I love it how these people are like, you cops shit on people too much. You guys physically, so, like, bro, what do you want them to do? When they say that they're giving you, like, that you're trespassing and they want you to remove, do you want them to, like, cuff you? Like, the whole point of them not cuffing you is because they don't want to escalate the situation to something it doesn't have to be. Just, like, get off the property. There's no, like, need for physicality here. There's no need to lay on hands.
incident. Mr. Gutterman went on to file a lawsuit against the town of Silverthorne, and according to the Colorado Freedom of Information Coalition, the case was settled for $9,500 a few months later.
Wait,
Overall,
why?
the Silverthorne officers get a B, because although
What?
the officers appeared to be unfamiliar with Poster 7 and the legality of filming inside a post office, they remained calm and professional throughout the encounter, appeared to consult with their superiors before making any concrete decisions, and ultimately allowed
Wait, why
Mr.
a
Gutterman to
B?
go free without any charges. It is clear clear that the Silverthorne officers were operating outside the scope of their knowledge of the law, but it is likely
Sure.
that a court would have favored their defense if the town had taken this
Wait,
case
so is he giving them a B because they didn't know the law regarding this shit?
to trial. This interaction highlights a perpetual misconception that tends to circulate throughout the auditing community, which is the idea that all government-owned property is subject to First Amendment protections. The Supreme Court has stated on numerous occasions that the government has the right to regulate the use of its property and ensure that the property is dedicated to its intended use. Whenever a government entity is sued, such as the town of Silverthorne, they must evaluate whether mounting a legitimate defense in the courtroom would be more cost-effective than settling the suit outright, and it is likely that the representatives of Silverthorne offered to settle the case to avoid wasting taxpayer dollars in a lengthy court battle, regardless of whether they would have won the case or not. As mentioned before, there is a
Okay, so that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. Yeah, and I forgot. This is true, right? Like, they just looked at the resources that the dude had and was like, listen, dude, like, if this goes to court, it's just going to cost us more money than, like, $9 grand. We'll just give you $9 grand to just not take us to court. This is just going to cost us more money.
strong possibility that the town of Silverthorne could have won this case, but it simply was not worth the time and expended resources to partake in what was likely viewed as a frivolous lawsuit. Mr. Gutterman gets a C-, because although he maintained a calm and professional demeanor throughout the interaction, he failed to acknowledge the full context of the Poster 7 clause he was referring to, demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of the limitations of free speech, and demanded a written trespass notice that he was not entitled to. As mentioned on the previous episode of ATA, there is a lot to be said about the Supreme Court's interpretation of the First Amendment, and oftentimes the court's rulings appear to be in direct conflict with a layman understanding of free expression. Nonetheless, viewing this interaction through the lens of the courts indicates that Mr. Gutterman's conduct here is likely not protected under the First Amendment. And although I personally believe that Mr. Gutterman is a valuable asset to the auditing community, it is clear that the courts would likely disagree with his interpretation.
He's given an
of free
F
speech.
to an auditor
At the end of the
before,
day,
yeah.
the mission of ATA is to educate citizens about the judicial system as it is interpreted by the courts, regardless of whether that interpretation is contrary to my personal beliefs. And the end goal is to help citizens better navigate the judicial system should they ever find themselves entangled within it. I have a great deal of respect for Mr. Gutterman and what he has accomplished within the realm of constitutional activism, and the grade issued to him today is merely a reflection of the notion that his conduct would likely not be perceived favorably by a court in this particular interaction.